Factory Kids Church. It's so good to have you with us today. So you are joining us on week 2 of our Lions and Fires series. So last week we learned all about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego and how they were taken from their family and taken to Babylon to join the army. The king wanted them to eat all of this crazy food, but they said, no, we want to eat fruit and vegetables, and they basically made the right choice. Now, we were talking about how in our lives, in everything that we do, we need to make sure that we are always making the right decision and doing the right thing. Anyway, who wants to find out what happens in the story next? Me, I do. Anyway, let's watch this video and find out what happens next in the book of Daniel.
There once were 3 Jewish men named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Hey!
When they were very young, they were taken from Israel to live in a place called Babylon. At that time, the king of Babylon was a man named Nebuchadnezzar.
That's it. Almost there.
And he made a gold statue that was 90 feet tall.
Perfect.
The king sent a message for everyone to come to the dedication of his statue. When everyone had assembled, it was declared that people of all races, nations, and languages would bow before the statue and worship King Nebuchadnezzar's statue when they heard the sound of musical instruments. If anyone refused, they would be thrown into a fiery furnace. So at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people bowed to the ground and worshiped. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not, because they were Jewish and would only bow to the one true God. Some of the wise men of Babylon went to the king and told him that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to bow to the statue.
What?
This made the king very angry, and he asked Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego if it was true that they would not bow to the statue. Then he said he would give them one more chance to bow down, and if they did not bow, they will be thrown into the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied that they didn't need to defend themselves against the king. They said, "If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." The king was so angry with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that he commanded the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be bound and thrown in the fire. The fire was so hot that it killed the soldiers that threw them in. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the flames. But suddenly, the king jumped up and said to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them in the furnace?" The advisors said, "Yes." But the king said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around the fire, and the 4th looks like a god." Then the king shouted to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, "Come out!" So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire, and everyone saw that the fire had not touched them. They didn't even smell of smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar praised the one true God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who had rescued them from the fire. And the king made a new command that anyone who spoke a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego would be greatly punished. Then he promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in his court. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego trusted in God and were willing to die rather than worship any god but their own God.
No way. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego find themselves in an awful situation. They are thrown into the fiery furnace because they wouldn't bow down and worship the golden statue. You see, they had to go into the fiery furnace, which was scary, and they would have been worried and they would have been overwhelmed. But when they looked inside, who was with them? God. The God was protecting them from the fire, and they were totally fine. You know, in our lives, we're going to where we are going to feel scared and worried and overwhelmed and maybe a little bit anxious. I think definitely those three boys were feeling all of those things. And in our lives, we're going to go through all of these things and they're going to scare us and we're going to be worried. But just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, God was always with them. God will always be with us. Now I want to tell you a story. When I was younger, we went on holiday to the beach, and I love going to the beach, and I love going in a caravan and having a caravan holiday. Now one day with my mum and my family, we were walking by the sea, and we saw this man who was carrying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of balloons. And I said to Mum, please, 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 can I have one? And she just kept saying no. She was like, Colleen, honestly, if you get one of those helium balloons, you will let it go. And I promised her that I would never let it go. I would hold on to it. Anyway, she let me have a balloon, and I did exactly that. Wherever I went and whatever I did, I held on to the balloon. I was not letting go of that balloon when we went to the beach. I took the balloon with me. The only time I put the balloon down was when it was bedtime and I tied it to a teddy in the corner. The only time I let go of this balloon was when basically it lost all its air and it was just floating on the ground. I didn't let it go. And you know, in the Bible, in a book called Deuteronomy, it says this:
He will be with you, he will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Deuteronomy 31, verse 8.
How amazing is that? All that Bible verse basically says is that just like when I didn't let the balloon go, and just like when God was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and he didn't let them go, what that Bible verse is saying is that even when we're scared, even when we're worried, even when we're upset, even when we're going through something really, really horrible, God will never let us go. And he is always with us and he will never leave us. And I saw this happen in my life once. When I was younger, my dad was really poorly and he had something wrong with his heart, and it meant that he had to have an operation on his heart. And I remember being so scared and so worried and really frightened about what might happen. But someone reminded me of that Bible verse, that God is always with me and he will never leave me. So even though I went through something awful, something really scary and something really sad, God was with me and he didn't let me go. I didn't let the balloon go. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were not let go. God looked after them in the fiery furnace. And God looked after me when my dad was really sick. And God will never let you go. So if you're struggling or you're scared or you're worried or you're going through something that seems scary, remember that God is always with you and he has never let you go. So today's big answer is he won't let go. Everyone say it after me. He won't let go. He won't let go. He won't let go. Amazing. Anyway, Hero Factory, join us next week when we find out what happens in the third and final part of the book of Daniel.